The biggest Dragon Ball reveal event of, at least at this point in my lifetime and probably yours, is happening here in just a handful of days. And today we're talking about everything that's going to be there, including leaks, rumors, and what I think will be shown. This includes multiple game announcements and also anime related announcements, all right here in this one event. The first announcement of the day is going to be anime related, and the event starts on January 24th at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, and that is how they're going to literally debut the event, is with this first anime announcement that they're giving a 45-minute block to. And the announcers here that we actually know of are Nozawa and Iyoku. Now, before we dive into any of the rumors or leaks, the obvious thing here is it's one of 5 things. It's either a Dragon Ball remake, a Dragon Ball Super remake, a continuation of Daima, a continuation of Super, or a movie announcement. That's pretty much all it can literally be. Now, if I were to rank those in terms of what I would want to see, from the most hype for me to the least hype, most hype is obviously the continuation of Super. Super 2 is the biggest and best thing to me that they could announce here. Beyond that would be a movie. Again, new stuff is going to trump anything else for me personally. Below that would be a Super remake. Below that would be a Dragon Ball remake. Now, when we talk Dragon Ball, a lot of people zone in on this and think it's just referring to original Dragon Ball Kid Goku. But when people say Dragon Ball remake, again, I feel like most of you guys watching this know this, but in case you don't, the original manga never incorporates the Z moniker, right? That was something created just for the anime. It's just all Dragon Ball. So when someone says Dragon Ball remake, they are incorporating from the time it is Kid Goku all the way to Kid Buu's defeat. That is what someone's referring to when they say that. So that's what we're talking about here. Would be something that is the entire lifeline. Lifeline. I'm making a Siri X video. Anyway, Goku's entire journey through original Dragon Ball, basically. And then last but not least, and I don't know if this is a shocker for some of y'all, but it would be anything related to Daima. I think Daima was a nice one-off thing. Are there still elements they could explore? Sure. There are still things they could absolutely do. But in terms of where my excitement would be, this would be at the bottom for me. But a Daima series or movie, you know, I mean, I'd still tap in, and I'm sure it'd get pretty crazy based on those last few episodes of Daima. But for me, this would be like the least hype thing. As far as what we know, we'll start with like maybe one of the craziest ones that I just don't think has much weight, is this sort of quote unquote leak rumor. I love that the reply is my source is that I made it up, right? But a Dragon Ball Super remake that would go from 2026 to 2028. We're remaking all of BOG through TOP, and then in 2028 we would start on actual new stuff. This is more sort of a rumor as opposed to a leak, since there's no source here literally at all. There are people behind the scenes that do claim to know things, and I'm sure they do, right? So many people are involved in the process of creating things these days, and things are outsourced, and NDAs only go so far. I mean, if you know something right now and you're friends with someone that you know that would like make their day to tell them, like, it's really hard to keep secrets. Like, if I was an animator on a Dragon Ball Super remake, or if I was right now in the back end drawing a bunch of frames for Moro, it'd be really hard for me to not want to tell my friends, like, bro, like, Moro's coming back, especially if my friends are really into Dragon Ball. That'd be really, really, really hard to not say. So I mean, there are things I'm sure circulating on the back end, but I think this is too detailed. How does this person know the exact amount of episodes? Like, this is far too detailed. But this tweet, and I only bring it up because it gained so much traction, almost 800,000 views, 1,000 retweets, almost 10,000 likes. Like, this really made the rounds last month, and a lot of people were almost taking this as gospel, which is crazy to me. Next up is we had this image being circulated around, which I can't obviously show, but it's this Battle of Gods image, and it appeared to be sort of like pre-animation, and it did get taken down by Toei. Toei Animation has removed the leaked image of the supposed Dragon Ball Super remake, which suggests that it wasn't fake. It's still not clear whether it will be a full remake, a flashback, or something specific, but it already seems official. The big concern is a possible return to Yamamoto's style. So I can't show this, as I just said, but this making the rounds and then also it getting taken down by Toei. I mean, if you browse Twitter, there's 1,000,001 gifs, pictures, and everything of Dragon Ball. If this was something that was old, I'm not sure why they would take it down. My gut still tells me this is not like some confirmation of a remake. You guys remember in Dragon Ball Super Superhero, the beginning starts out not in CG and is a retelling of a lot of the moments revolving around the Red Ribbon Army, right? And I think they could do something similar here, especially if we do go back into Super 2. To me, it would make sense to do this recap, right? Super still feels so fresh on my mind, but Super ended 8 years ago this March. 8 years ago since it was on air. So with Battle of the Gods being 11 years old at this point in anime form. So I could see them doing some sort of like, let's recap really quickly, like what happened before, you know, this episode today, which would be, you know, a brand new episode and continuing after the Tournament of Power. But then there's this, which LaGeek is going to come up again after this. This LaGeek either has really, really good insider info, really good at predicting stuff, or is completely full of it. Not entirely sure yet. We're going to find out shortly. But French YouTuber Sofiane LaGeek says or confirms there's a full DBS remake happening in 2026, not Kai style. Talked about this on the podcast with Dotto. I have a podcast with Dotto Dway called Key Moments, and a lot of people responded. Me and Dotto were just like, what do they mean by Kai style? Because Kai, to me, I'm just thinking of the fact that it's just cut down, right? No filler. I'm like, well, yeah, I would hope it's not going to have a bunch of filler in it, but it's just saying it won't utilize any old scenes at all. Every scene will be completely newly drawn, all of that. No incorporation of old scenes, period. Faithful to Toyotaro's manga, which is a big one that's been brought up a lot about this. Is it being faithful to the manga so that way it can run into being faithful to the Moro arc, and so there's no changes, period? That aspect is interesting to me. I still don't totally love it, but is what it is. Plus new DB game and possible CGI movie. Yamamuro is the main animation director with several other animators involved, including Takahashi. So with this info here, which we're not done yet, things do start pointing towards remake. Now, here's my thing. As I already tier listed these for you guys, I'm down for remake, but that's not my most sought after thing, right? I feel like as a Dragon Ball fan, we sort of feel like we've been sort of spinning our wheels for like a long time now. I know we've gotten, since Super went off, we've gotten 2 movies and a new series, but the new series was an in-between series, which are always sort of weird with any IP, right? Sort of changed the way we viewed some aspects of Super, because if this is supposed to be before Super, you know, it was just kind of weird, and I don't think it was very well received. I know, listen, man, I enjoyed plenty of moments of Daima. Goku going Super Saiyan 4 is probably one of my favorite scenes in Dragon Ball. Like, they went crazy with that. That moment was sick. But beyond that, in those movies, it just, I don't know. Every announcement, they get us hyped for something, and then it's just a nothing burger, right? Senses are telling me, as much as I don't want it to be, that a remake almost falls in line, I feel like, with the upper management right now and how they're handling things. For me, it's like Dragon Ball Super is already modern enough. The series is not old. Came out in the post-digital age. I can literally pull up on YouTube and watch any of it officially through Crunchyroll right now. We don't need this. Like, it doesn't need to be done. And Super isn't even really that bloated. It's only 130 episodes. Like, is Super a lot of Super ugly? Yes, but do we really need this? No. However, the last thing here that I have related to the anime is this. Now, this went super under the radar. You can see I bookmarked this. I did not see hardly anyone talking about this. But why are we making another Super Saiyan God Funko that is slated for this fall? Now, Goku goes Super Saiyan God beyond just in Battle of Gods. I'm fully aware of that. And so this could still be related to Moro, or could just still be related to firing back up Dragon Ball Super. Something tells me if Super comes back, you know, and it is a continuation, they're gonna retread Superhero and retread Broly. I don't know, my sixth sense sort of thing going off here. I do think this is something that we could see, but not a lot of people are talking about this. The fact that it's slated for fall, the fact that they're doing this announcement now, I mean, we will be watching something Dragon Ball related, I believe, this year. One of those 5 things I mentioned, we will be watching it this year. And again, very under the radar thing, but figures do sometimes spoil things, which is kind of funny in and of itself. But yeah, this is a very interesting announcement. As always, this is early information and things may change. Nothing is official until confirmed. This is one of those things that if you're just a Funko collector, you're kind of whatever. If you're a Dragon Ball fan and you're seeing this, you're like, okay. Now let's move on to the game announcement, because guess what? There's also more anime. We're gonna come back to that in just a sec. The game announcement, there's been rumors circulating about Xenoverse 3. I actually covered them on my channel some time ago. We had Clifford here say info on Xenoverse 3 that I got from a reliable source in Japan and that I can now share. Well in development, numerous delays in some aspects have been completely redone from scratch. Graphically very beautiful, which I love to hear. I hate the way Xenoverse looks. I just don't think Xenoverse is a very pretty Dragon Ball game. I just don't. A playable version already exists, released in 2027 or 2028. Now, Clifford would go on to expand on this a little bit. So some clarifications, graphically the game would adopt a cell shading style, to be confirmed. That's what I would want, right? Cell shaded, I think just, that just fits Dragon Ball so well. Regarding the release, we're looking at late 2027 or even early 2028. In my opinion, it's still too early for an announcement at Genki Damatsuri or Games Battle Hour. Now, here is my argument against that. If you guys look back at when we got the Sparking Zero teaser, which my guess is, again, they're doing an entire chunk here that is a full 30 minutes. The teaser for Sparking Zero was barely 60 seconds, and the actual portion where we actually saw Sparking Zero was like under 10 seconds, right? The buildup was showing us old Budokai Tenkaichi footage, and then it was very minimal of new actual sparking footage. My guess is they're bringing something here, they're going to be able to show a little bit more of that off. But looking at how they handled Sparking Zero's release, we saw it in March of 2023. We then were playing it, had it in our hands in October of 2024. So this would align pretty well with a late 2027 release. Now, if it isn't Xenoverse 3, which we're not done talking about leaks with this, there are a handful of things it could be. Right? I think before we talk about that, we do need to bring up the elephant in the room, and that's the speakers. I'm pretty bad with names, so hopefully I don't mispronounce anything here, but Hirano and Furutani are both going to be there. So Hirano is, I believe, has been upgraded from just being a Xenoverse producer. I think he is one of the just bigger main producers over in Japan for Bandai Namco. But if you guys are familiar, if you've ever seen pictures of him with Rhyme or just ever watched interviews with this guy, he is like the main lead Xenoverse guy. So he's the guy that you sort of went to get an interview out of and talk about Xenoverse. That is this guy, and he's going to be there. Again, that's why I'm wanting to know that I'm almost positive. I could not find a LinkedIn profile or anything like that, but I feel like I've seen somewhere mentioned that he isn't just specifically over Xenoverse anymore. He's more of just a general producer for the Dragon Ball games at Bandai Namco, but I do think this could be a telltale sign. Now, an interesting one here specifically is the fact that Furutani is going to be here as well. I do think, and we do know, they announced that they are going to be doing more with Sparking Zero, which is not much of a surprise. I am personally of the mind that I would love a Sparking 1 or Sparking 2, and they could implement some bigger updates than just characters, but maybe we are going to get something similar to that, because Sparking Zero games these days have become more of platforms than anything else. You know, you look at Roblox, you look at Fortnite, you look at all these games that sort of become platforms. So you can actually, like, when you say Fortnite, you definitely think of the BR mode, but I have spent like hundreds of hours in Lego Fortnite with my kid, right? Lego Fortnite is completely separate from regular Fortnite, and the games just become platforms. So the Sparking Zero is already a really good base of a game. If they can implement and include new modes, like a raid battle mode you can play with your friends, co-op, stuff like that, that would be huge. So maybe he's here to announce like a big update for Sparking Zero, more so than just here are some new characters. I don't know, just Furutani being attached to this specific game announcement section is interesting, to say the least. If it is not Xenoverse 3, some of the realistic things I think that could be here, I know a lot of people keep saying they want Raging Blast 3. Sparking Zero to me is the culmination of what Spike Chunsoft did with Raging Blast and the Tenkaichi series put together in one. I don't think you're getting Raging Blast 3. If you actually look at sales data for Raging Blast, I think those games just garnered a really good core fandom, but the sales of Raging Blast were not very good, right? I think both the games sold combined, at least based on numbers and data we can find online, less than a lot of the other mainline games. It's just the nature of it all. So realistic games, if they're in their bag and they're trying to do continuations of original games that sold well, Budokai 4, I know Infinite World exists, but Budokai 4 is definitely a game that could make some level of sense. More for Fighters does not make sense, right? They're doing the DLC. I do think we are going to see more from Fighters, but that's not here. And then Super Dragon Ball Fighters, it may happen at some point, but again, we're getting more DLC. They seem to be firing those pistons back up. That'd be at another time if that ends up happening. As far as what I would want to see, if you look at Breakers, you look at Genshin Squadron, they are trying to tap into different genres of games. Roguelikes are huge. I would personally love a Dragon Ball roguelike. I think it'd be really, really sick, and it would adapt very well into the Dragon Ball formula, where you just take a character and you see how far you can go, and the farther you go, the more you charge up, the more enemies you defeat, the higher levels of Super Saiyan and all of that you can go. I think a roguelike would actually lend itself very well to the Dragon Ball IP. A BR, I know when I say that, a lot of people are like, ugh. But if you've ever played Ultra Rumble, when done right, BR mode for an anime game can be really, really good. I hate the summoning aspect of Ultra Rumble, but the actual gameplay of Ultra Rumble is very, very fun. And man, I actually really wish that the Dragon Ball IP had a game like this. So it would not be that shocking. Beyond that, Dragon Ball Super Kakarot, I do think this Daima Part 2 DLC, we're probably getting close to the end. They are very clearly not touching Dragon Ball Super for a reason. If they're doing Dragon Ball Super related announcements, then a Dragon Ball Super story-based game, which does not really exist at this point still, is definitely something I think that would be on the table. And CC2, hey man, they are just pumping games, bro. They are crazy with this. And last but not least, and again, this is like more of just a dream, right? There's no substance here to this, but I just want to say it. It's an action game. I won this for a long time, man. A game where you're like Trunks and it plays like a Devil May Cry. That would be so sick, dude. That would be so freaking sick. But chances of that probably pretty slim, but I would love if you handed like Platinum Games the Dragon Ball IP and said, hey, make us a really sick action RPG, dude. Jeez, man. Sura's Wrath, but Dragon Ball? Oh, Oh, please. And lastly, and I said that this Legeek would show up more than once, but Legeek tweeted, this is a tweet directly from them right here. It says, since Cliff4 shared some info, I confirm what he said. The Xenoverse 3 is in development. There have been some delays and it hasn't been easy because some things were complex to achieve. The graphics will be magnificent. No precise release date at this time. It is worth noting that like back in 2022, there were a lot of people talking about a Xenoverse 3 being in development. I think this game has probably been in development for a long time. We mentioned this many times. I feel very strongly that they found a good formula with Xenoverse, and they're probably trying to iterate on it and try to make it like a very perfect modern day, somewhat live servicey, but still somewhat nice, good, complete package, and all in the same, all in one massive Dragon Ball game that'll be called Xenoverse 3. This game has been rumored for forever, so just you could take some of this with a grain of salt. Again, these are just rumors. I know some of it says leaks. They are leaks, but then also a bit of rumor. But ultimately, you want me to just say what I think it is. I think Xenoverse 3 makes the most sense. I think it is their most future-proofed type of game they could make. I think they really got a formula right. They stumbled upon a formula that made a lot of sense and worked really well for a lot of the fandom with Xenoverse 2. And I think you just build upon that, and that is your next game. I think that announcement makes the most sense, but pretty exciting because I think it could be a little bit of anything. Next up, we have exclusive announcements part 2. Now I want to just bring up this specifically. This wording has changed since we originally saw this. So this tweet right here, and this was me covering it in a video, said a spectacular talk stage featuring Nozawa, the voice of Son Goku, with major new announcements, plural. And then when you went to the page before, it said new development super announcement part 1, new development super announcement part 2. So if we take a look at who the guests are going to be for this, you have Nozawa back on stage and Yoku, but then also and more ... So either A, they're coming back to sort of like glaze themselves off of the first announcement, or B, it is an additional announcement. Which, coming back to the tweet from before, a new DB game and possible CGI movie. From my understanding, the whole point of making the superhero film and making it BCG was so that they can make more of them exactly like that, and the CG stuff was easier. Specifically, I think them bringing Cell back, I think is one of the reasons why they did CG, because apparently drawing Cell with all of his like spots in his design was a nightmare for animators back in the day. So this makes a lot of sense to me, but then I was talking to Dado about it, and I think the realm of making films that are non-canon, right? A random weird spin-off of like a Dragon Ball Z BoJack is probably never going to happen again. Like, you're never going to get this weird side villain only made for a movie thing again. So I think the perfect thing here to do is to do a Daima movie, and you continue that and you do some interesting stuff with that. So people that do like Daima get more of that. And then you do a super anime, whether it be the remake or continuation. I think that's the best way to handle it. Ultimately, this could come down to it just being a movie, and I'd be excited for that. I think a lot of people will be disappointed if it is just a movie, like I'm talking about from both announcements. But I think this being one announcement for one thing and an announcement for a separate thing is very likely. I really, really do believe that. And I think if you had to make me place my bets right now on these 3 announcements back to back to back, it's going to be DBS. Really want it to be 2. I want it to be 2. And to Xenoverse 3 with some sort of spark. Again, Furutani's there for a reason. Sparking Zero is getting mentioned somehow. And then movie announcement. That's all I'm saying. It may only be one announcement anime related, and this is just a continuation of that. But it is worth noting, why are we spending 45 minutes in part 1 and then spending another 30 minutes later again on it? It feels weird to do that to me. I feel like these are 2 separart announcements. Next up, we have Dokkan, which I'm not talking about these leaks here on the channel yet, but we did have a leak for this. Tag Super Saiyan 4 Goku and tag SSBE and UI. Take these with a grain of salt. Truly, there is no real substance to this other than, I guess, believe me, bro. And I have insider info. So are there probably people I could probably personally reach out to and see if I could get some validity on this? Maybe. I don't want to know. I want to be able to ride the high with everybody else when we see. So I'm going to say take this with a grain of salt. Super Saiyan 4 has shown up a lot in anniversaries, so this wouldn't be that surprising. And doing back-to-back SSBE also would not be the first time that we've had back-to-back in the same form of Vegeta, right? 7th anniversary, 8th anniversary is both Super Saiyan 4 Vegetas. So as much as I would love for this to probably not be right, it wouldn't be that shocking to see these characters, but it just wouldn't be that shocking to see these characters. Either way, when they're here, we have a 45-minute stage dedicated to Dokkan, Legends, and Squadra, so we will see something for the anniversary here. I kind of thought we might see something for the anniversary before this, because last year we saw it earlier than this. Last year we saw our first, like the first true reveal of the characters on the 19th of January, so if we don't see something within the next like day or two about this, they are definitely just straight up revealing characters on this this Genki Damatsuri stage. So that's where we'll see them. Will we see Super Saiyan 4s and UI and SSBE? I don't know. We'll find out here in just a few days. After that, we've got Legends. They're bringing something, right? They always do, and it's literally listed here, so of course they are. But I think it's more Daima. I don't think so. You know, I've seen people that are throwing around like, oh, we're going to see Goma. I'm like, well, first off, if they're going to show something here, it's probably not going to be Goma. Secondly, I don't know if Goma's even going to get a Legends Limited character. If Goma gets an LL, it is like at a dual drop with Goku coming at the same time. I feel like I think they're aware. I think there's a reason we've not got a Goma yet. I just don't think people really care about Goma. So I don't think he's the character to show here. So if it's more Daima, it is SSJ 4, but I think the chances of it being an Ultra probably pretty high. Chances of it being not Daima related probably pretty high. Then we got Gexen Squadra, which we already know that Bardock is dropping only days after this event on the 27th of January. I think they'll just show gameplay for Bardock. I don't think they show anything else. You know, we know all the way up until Kefla, and the next season doesn't start until like March. So I don't know. Be a little weird to show anything from season 4 off this early. So my guess truly is just Bardock gameplay. Early Bardock gameplay, maybe early Kefla gameplay. Then after that, we've got Super Divers and Fusion World, so their card game and their arcade game. They're spending a lot of time on that, which is surprising. Then we have weekly Dragon Ball news on site, and then we have Genki Damatsuri special live stage. They could throw a little bit of a teaser here at the end of this all, which will be very late for I think most people in the States. I do think you could see something, some sort of like closer anime teaser sort of thing that is just like a teaser building up off what they showed off in part 1 or part 2 of the anime stuff. But doubtful that there's too much more here, because yeah, you want to close out with probably something cool, but you don't wait till then to, you know, lay it all out on the table. So either way, I'll be streaming the event, so be there, hang out with me, and let's see what Dragon Ball is announcing next. In the meantime, you can click on this video right here, and I'll see you guys over there in that one. Bye.